What is up, 49ers faithful? Drew Kerr here with Josh Putnam. Josh's breakdowns. A lot of you probably have been on his channel and seen the film breakdowns. They're very cinematic. They're very well put together and thought through. He puts a lot of work in and time in putting those together for Niners fans to be able to dive into all 22 views and just, the analysis and everything like that. So welcome, Josh. Glad to collaborate with you. It's been a long time coming. We've had this set up for a couple weeks now, so glad to have you.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me on. And I got to give a shout out too to CG Ruthless for setting this up. I don't know if people really recognize, how much CG does behind the scenes with other content creators, setting up these kinds of collabs. He's got a great TikTok channel, if you've never seen that. And he's, in my opinion, the best pure interviewer on YouTube. He's constantly got great guests on his channel, interviewing some of the top players, and really worth giving that guy a follow for sure. So thank
Absolutely.
you to CG Ruthless as well.
Yeah, definitely go over and give CG a follow. He's got great content and a lot of good guests, like Josh alluded to. So, sort of what we're going to do. The title obviously says schedule breakdown, and we're going to get to that. But we have some talking points that we want to kind of get to first, and some factors that will play into the Niners season this year. So I'm just going to kind of jump in and kind of go one by one. It's just 4 topics. At the end of the video, we will do a prediction, just a fun little schedule prediction or win-loss record prediction. So stay tuned for that. And I'm just going to kind of get into each topic. And the first thing I'm just going to start with is the travel miles. The Niners kind of being on the West Coast kind of always have a high mileage count on travel. So what are your initial thoughts on that? Having the 5th most behind Chargers, Dolphins, Seattle, and New England.
Yeah, the travel, it's kind of the nature of the beast, right? As you mentioned, we are on the West Coast. It's just natural that they are going to have more travel miles. And I see that the other teams on the list here, LA, Seattle, right, other West Coast teams, in some years it's more than others. This year happens to be one of those years.
Yeah, definitely. So, that's kind of just always a thing with the Niners, and I think that they're used to that. But, I think it is favorable in some ways, and we'll get into that later on. It's not favorable in a lot of other ways, but the travel's not too bad the way that they've done it. And again, we'll get into the games itself here in a minute, but I'm going to just go on to the next topic. Negative 22 rest day differential than opponents. This came per Guy Haberman. Also a good follow. If you're not already following him, last year was negative 20 for contrast, and they still managed to win the NFC. So thoughts on that?
Well, this has been more and more of a topic in recent years, and I think that has to do with the fact that the NFL is scheduling more of these short rest games. Obviously, the advent of Thursday night football in the early 2000s, really started putting this on the map. The earliest example that really stands out for me was in 2010. The Seattle Seahawks won the NFC West, but they didn't have a very good record that year. They were only 7-9. It was Matt Hasselbeck's last year in Seattle, and they played the New Orleans Saints in the playoffs, and this was when they had prime Drew Brees, prime Sean Payton.
Yeah.
But the Saints had to travel to Seattle on a short week. Seattle played a physical game, and at the end of that game, Marshawn Lynch made a run, and the Saints could not tackle him. And so that was the first time that I really sat up and took notice and said, wow, that rest differential, that really is a factor. And it's been known in football circles for a long time. It's just, like I said, there's more of a focus on it now because we're seeing more of these games scheduled now.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember that game that you're talking about, or not the game, but that season. And I remember thinking 7-9 teams should not get into the playoffs, but then they went on and, won. And so they kind of earned it there. So
I agree.
you got to give credit where credit's due, even though it's the enemy. You live up in enemy territory up in Washington State, and so I'm sure you're used to dealing with that. So
Oh yeah, it's always fun, but you hang in there.
yeah, absolutely. So next quick one is strength of schedule. I didn't see too many people talking about this, but this actually is a little bit favorable. The Niners are sort of middle of the pack on strength of schedule this season. So I'm not a huge strength of schedule guy just because teams, there's turnover every year. It's a new team every year. So, I don't put a ton of stock into strength of schedule. Do you?
I think it's a little bit like a lot of the things we're going to talk about today: mileage, rest, strength of schedule. It's a factor. It's not the defining factor. As you pointed out, we had a very tough rest schedule last year and went to the Super Bowl. So
Yeah.
it's one of those things to keep in mind, but not the be all end all.
Yeah, it's still 11 on 11, but these small little things can play a factor. We saw it actually last year in that 3-game stretch, the Browns, and then the Bengals, and then the Vikings, and then the Bengals, and the Niners just looked different. They looked tired. They looked sort of lethargic playing. I mean, I don't know if you analyze that in your film breakdown and notice that a little bit more, but I notice it just like by the naked eye. It seemed like, those games watching them, the Niners just didn't have that extra gear that, especially on defense. Kind of seemed like Burrow was just doing whatever he wanted to him in the Bengals game, and then Cousins kind of the same thing. And it just seemed like the back end was slow. It seemed like the mid-level was a little bit slow, and I'm not sure if you pointed that out, but I'm sure that there were times that you kind of, alluded to that or saw it and circled it.
Yeah, again, we talk about a lot of those factors on my channel. So, particularly when you play a road game and then the following week you play a road night game, it's very difficult to win that game, and that's what happened in Minnesota. Right? They lost in Cleveland. Yeah. It was very, ugly game. They could have won it at the end. So you'd think, okay, they're really going to be focused. They're going to come out sharp. They're going to bounce back. They're going to be ready to go for this Vikings game.
Yeah.
And it didn't happen.
Yeah, and then it happened again, or did not happen again the following week. So yeah, that was a rough stretch, but they managed to come out of their bye and were rested. You could see that they were rested. Jacksonville looked lost. They were. I think there was one point that there was some audio, some mic audio where Jacksonville lineman said, or I think it might have been Fred Warner. He was like, they don't know what they're doing. And lineman responded and said, "You're right, we don't." And I thought that was pretty funny. So anyway, moving on to the next topic are the teams that have buys before playing the Niners. Thoughts on that?
Well, they are playing teams that, four different games that are against teams coming off of a bye. It's the highest in the league. It was also the highest in the league last season when they played 4. This year, the Colts have 3, and no other team has more than 2. So, again, another factor. And as we start getting into these games and we look at the rest differential on a game-by-game basis, in my opinion, that is probably the most significant factor that we're going to look at.
Yeah. I think, for the Chiefs, the Niners do play Thursday night the week before, so it's almost like a mini bye, but still Chiefs get the rest advantage, I think, by, a few days. And, Andy Reid with extra time to game plan, and Spagnuolo extra time to game plan after, what is it going to be, 5 weeks of film? 5, 6, what week? I think that's week 6, right?
Week 7.
Yeah, week 7. Okay, so yeah. Plenty of film out there. If the Niners are doing anything different by then, it will show up on film. And I don't know. That's going to be a tough game. The Chiefs always seem to have our number, but the Niners always seem to have Dallas's number. And for the past couple of years, Seattle. But I don't know how Mike McDonald is going to be coaching Seattle. Obviously, defensive-minded guy. He played the Niners. He faced Shanahan in that Christmas game where the Ravens just kind of completely destroyed the Niners, and everybody looked lost and all out of sorts. And I'm sure you had a film breakdown for that game. I'm gonna have to go check that one out because it was ugly. And as a fan, I was pretty angry. I was like, on Christmas, like really, like you couldn't even make it competitive. We got to get Sam Darnold in there to start throwing touchdowns. What is this? So yeah, it was kind of hard to watch, and it'll be interesting to see how Mike McDonald starts coaching those guys up. They have a really young defense, and they kind of seem like they were marginally on the rise last year a little bit. So we'll see what happens. The Niners swept them last year, so will that happen this year? I don't know. We'll see in our schedule prediction how that shakes out. So yeah. Anyway, any more thoughts on the buys or?
No, I think that's well said. I know I have some thoughts on Mike McDonald in Seattle. We can get into that when we get into the games, but I think it's
Okay.
no accident that the Ravens came in and had a strong game defensively, and then the Seahawks looked at that and said maybe that's the direction we want to go.
Right. Yeah. And they kind of have a similar secondary and mindset and things like that on the back end. Pete Carroll's still there, so I'm sure he'll have little pieces of input and things like that. So, all right. Well, let's jump into the schedule. Everybody's probably seen it by now, but we'll give our own take and our own analysis week by week on kind of the matchups and different, scenarios and things like that. So, without further ado, we'll get into week one, which is the Jets at Levi Stadium against the Niners, Monday Night Football, September 9th at 5:15. And you can just go ahead and take the floor and give me your thoughts on that one.
Yeah, so I think the most obvious thing about that game is it's Robert Sala's return to the Bay, right? That's going to be just going to add to what is already going to be a really electric atmosphere, I think. Aaron Rodgers will be making his return as well. The Jets drafting a tackle with the 11th pick. Clearly, they want to protect him this year and keep him healthy because they got a heck of a defense. And we're going to see one of the most intriguing matchups in all of sports that we get a chance to see sometimes year in and year out. Youth versus experience, right? Brock Purdy versus Aaron Rodgers.
Right.
That game's going to be a lot of fun, and it's on Monday Night Football.
Right. Yeah. And there's already fuel to the fire. Like Aaron Rodgers is already talking smack and saying he's going to take Purdy to school. I'm not sure if you saw any of those quotes. Already given him bulletin board material. And, to me, I've kind of paid attention a little bit to the Jets. Aaron Rodgers already thrown and things like that. And I've seen some footage of him. And I was kind of just curious, like, how does that Achilles look? How does this movement look? And to me, in my mind, like the movement isn't fantastic. Like, I don't know if it's age or the Achilles, but just dropping back, he doesn't look like his normal self. He doesn't look like he looked in Green Bay. He doesn't look like MVP Aaron Rodgers. And so that'll be interesting to see how he moves around in the pocket. So that's always been one of his, assets is his ability to be mobile and move around and move around in the pocket. And if he can't do that, you better hope Tyron Smith can hold up, and you better hope those linemen can hold up, because if they don't, I mean, Bosa's going to get home. Leonard Floyd, who actually ruptured his Achilles, going to get home. We don't know if Drake Jackson, how he's going to look when he comes back, but Yetur Matos, or what is it, Matos Gross or Gross Matos, I'm not sure how he's going to fit into the picture, but I assume that they'll probably try to use him a little bit like Eric Armstead, sort of mid-career Eric Armstead, where they kind of moved him inside, moved him outside, depending on the situation. And I think there's a lot of great matchups to watch in this. Are there any rookie type matchups that you're interested to see in this one?
I do believe the 49ers will work their rookies in this season, maybe more so than in previous seasons because of the rest factor. But maybe not so much in week one. I think week one,
Yeah.
they're going to kind of go with their bread and butter. And as far as, Aaron Rodgers and his mobility, we're going to find out. We're going to find out how he looks. Father Time is undefeated.
Yeah.
With the understanding that it's week one and it's his first game back from the injury.
Right. Yeah. All right. Yeah, I think there's going to be a lot to watch in that one. It's going to be exciting. It's going to be Monday Night Football, and I can't wait. Really can't wait. Preseason's first. I'm here in Tennessee, so I'm going to try to make it to the Titans game. Probably won't see a lot of starters, but I'm interested in a lot of the rookies. So, they have. We didn't really touch on the preseason, but week one preseason's Titans here in Tennessee. Then they go back home, face the Saints. They're going to have joint practices with the Saints, so I think that's probably the most important week. And then they finish off with the Raiders in Las Vegas. So, and then they come back home to face the Jets in week one. So moving on to week two, this one. Just to preface this, the Niners have not won or beat Minnesota in Minnesota since like 1992. I think it's been like 7 games or something like that. And it's been a long time. But I think, in my personal opinion, I think they might have the advantage just because of their quarterback situation. What are your thoughts on that game?
Yeah, that's something we discussed last year during our breakdown as well. These long losing streaks against not only Minnesota but also the Cleveland Browns. Minnesota is a very difficult place to play, right? Back when they had the Metrodome and now with their new stadium, it's very, very loud. Kind of like Seattle, Detroit. Some of these louder stadiums in the league,
Yeah.
and we're building up. We've been talking about the rest differential already. We see it immediately, right? We get
Yeah.
to play the Jets on Monday Night Football week 1, which is great, but then we get to what I consider to be one of the toughest obstacles on football, which is being the road team on a short week. So
Yeah.
they have to go to Minnesota on a short week in a very difficult environment to play, and that's tough. You did mention, though, they no longer have Kirk Cousins. They have Sam Darnold. I think Sam Darnold is perfectly adequate as a quarterback, but we do have the advantage of kind of knowing him inside
Yeah.
and out, having him on the roster last year. So I
Right.
feel
And this
hopefully,
is all,
yeah,
sorry, this is all assuming that JJ McCarthy doesn't beat him out. I mean, if JJ McCarthy comes out and he's just like, a phenom, a blue chipper right out the gates, then maybe Sam Darnold is QB2 again, but probably not. Probably not. They're probably going to go with the vet, I think.
I think either way, it's a good situation for the 49ers. Hopefully a little bit more favorable than last year.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Defensively, I mean, the Vikings have some pieces, but there are definitely areas where Kyle Shanahan can expose them, I think, with the offense. So this could be a 30-burger game. It could get ugly really fast, but who knows? I mean, anything can happen before the season starts. There's all kinds of variables. There's all sorts of factors that are going to play in before week one, even. I mean, guys, blow Achilles and all sorts of stuff in camp. So, there's just the unknown about that. But if you turn injuries off Madden style, and we know the rosters, I like the Niners in this matchup here. Week 3, we move on to Los Angeles.
Yeah, so, going on the road 2 weeks in a row is never ideal, but let's face it, it's going to be at Levi's South.
Yeah, right. Another home game.
That's
Disadvantage for
right.
the Rams. They don't have anything like Arizona used to have this thing like protect the nest. And it didn't really work though. I lived in Arizona for a bit and we'd go to Niners games and it was always like 50-50. We'd go into like a Safeway to grab a 6-pack of beer, 12-pack of beer. There'd always be like Montana jerseys walking around and all that sort of thing. So, Arizona, there are a lot of transplants from California. They tried their best to do it. And I think even if the Rams try to do it, so many Niners fans or people became Niners fans because LA, they took off to St. Louis and then the Raiders moved to Oakland and they didn't have a team. So I think a lot of people just by, winning nature wanted to become Niners fans. And there's so many Niners fans. And there's also transplants in Southern California. So yeah, it's fun to see that stadium fill up with red every time we play Los Angeles. I think it was Matt Stafford's wife that said, they couldn't hear it. Like they had to go on a silent count, like at home. So that's pretty funny to me. So are there any things that you're looking forward to in that game? I think we're going to talk about a little bit rookie impact and stuff like that at the end of this. So I won't get into that. But matchup wise, is there anything in this game that stands out to you?
Well, you talked about health earlier. Matt Stafford's health is kind of always a thing that's looming over with the Rams. Yeah, the Rams, they really are a Jekyll and Hyde team, kind of year in and year out. It go back. It wasn't too long ago that they were in the Super Bowl and winning the Super Bowl,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
So that they have that ability to be one of the better teams in the NFL, and then sometimes they just come out and for whatever reason have a down year. So I will be
Yeah.
curious to see which Rams team will be facing in Week 2.
Right. And you can never count out Sean McVay. He's a great coach. I mean, he has a ring. Kyle doesn't. Hate bringing that up. It hurts me to say it, but it's true. I mean, like, Sean McVay came from the same, line of coaching as Kyle. They kind of have similar offensive philosophies. I kind of think that's why the Niners got a Ricky Pearsall, who in my mind is not, he's comparable to Puka Nakua and Cooper Kupp in the sense that he runs routes really well and crisp and things like that. So, I think that this will be interesting, but the Niners have kind of had ownage on the Rams, and I don't want to jinx it or anything like that, but the Niners have had ownage on the Rams. It's kind of like the Chiefs with us. They've kind of just, some teams kind of have, the number of the other team. And I think that the Rams are one of those, like, Kyle versus Sean. Sean's kind of like the little brother that Kyle picks on, and it just kind of feels like that every time we play the Rams. So it'll be interesting. I do think, and we'll get into the roster predictions, but I do think the Rams are dangerous and can give the Niners trouble. And usually there's no blowout when we play the Rams. So, all right, Week 4. This one, Patriots come into town. It is a day game at Levi's, September 29th. What are your thoughts there?
Well, this is probably one of the most mysterious games on the schedule. My notes on this are very short because this is not the Patriots team we've been used to seeing in the NFL for the last 20 years, right?
Right.
Tom Brady is gone, and Bill Belichick for the first time is gone. Gerard Mayo, the new head coach in New England. So we're going to see, who's going to be the quarterback even. I mean, this
is it Drake May?
Mystery.
Is it?
Right.
Yeah. I don't know. I think that Drake May will probably, just because of where he was picked, I think Drake May will probably get the nod early on unless he completely stinks. But, he is wearing number 10. It kind of looks like Mac Jones again out there wearing the same number. Maybe he got Mac Jones' locker. Who knows? But, I think that the team is young. So I'm not counting out Gerard Mayo. I think he's probably going to be a good coach, but I don't think he's going to be a great coach in year one. I don't think he's going to be a D'Amico Ryans. I think the Patriots are so underwhelmed personnel wise that it's going to take a while for him to build a program there. So, I mean, if I'm a Patriots fan, I'm hoping that they give him a couple years, unless he just goes like 0-17 or something like that right off the bat, then get him out of there. But I think, it's going to take a while to rebuild that program. They got depleted. They got a bunch of young players in there. So, it could be like a situation like the Rams, a year ago or two ago. They had a couple great drafts. This might be a great draft. You never know until you know. But, we'll see. We'll see. I think the Niners will, unless they come out sleeping on the Patriots and they're just, kind of like, in their head saying, we got this before they got it. This could be a sneaky type of game where you're not expecting it. It's like one of those games, but, there's an upset because you're not on your game. I don't think that's likely, but it could happen.
It's going to be a way bigger game for the Patriots. And, they, of course, they would like to get sort of a signature win with their new head coach. I will say this. The head coach in waiting is always fascinating to me because sometimes it works great and then sometimes it does not work at all. With Jim Mora Jr. in Seattle, it did not work. With Phil Bankston in the Packers, it did not work. But with Mike Martz with the Rams, it worked spectacularly. So we're gonna see. They have a lot of confidence in Gerard Mayo. This has been set up and planned for a long time, so they believe in him. So that's not nothing.
I kind of view him like on the same level as like an Antonio Pierce, but I do think like the Raiders probably personnel wise are even better than the Patriots are set up for this season. But they're kind of like on that same level. Antonio Pierce, similar coaches, defensive minded coaches, young in their careers. So it'll be interesting to see how their coaching careers progress. I'd wager probably one out of the two is probably out of here next year. I don't think it's going to be Mayo. I think that Kraft likes the hire there, and he's a little bit more patient than Mark Davis there in Vegas. So probably going to be Pierce if it's anybody, but we'll see. We'll see. Week 5, Arizona at San Francisco. Another day game. So, yeah, early October.
Yeah, Arizona struggled record-wise last year. When we took a look at the film, though, we could see that they are clearly are building their team and moving towards something. Josh Dobbs, I think it's clear, definitely turned a corner in his career. And when the Cardinals traded him, I thought they were absolutely crazy. Dobbs, had a good game with the Vikings the following week, and I thought, man, I don't know what Arizona's doing here.
How did he even do that? Like, I mean,
Yeah,
I don't know. That was impressive.
but having said that, Kyler Murray looked really good in his return to football. Ultimately, I think the Cardinals were, in the end, maybe proven right. I really liked what I saw from Murray down the stretch. I don't know if Arizona is quite there yet. I think they're still building, but they added a major piece in the draft with Marvin Harrison Jr., clearly the best wide receiver in the draft. It's going to be an interesting game in San Francisco because we've kind of had their number, but they are capable of that surprise. It was just a few short years ago that they came in and surprised us pretty badly at Levi's.
Yeah.
So you never know with these division games. Having said
Yeah.
that, I like the Niners in the game.
and Jonathan Gannon, I think he's a really good coach. I think he's trying to kind of build like the Eagles West Coast version of the Eagles over there. But the biggest question mark is Kyler Murray. And, I think a lot of people say that the Cardinals had a good draft. I think a lot of people agree on that. But one of the things I said before going into this draft about Arizona is that they need to address the offensive line because, Kyler Murray, if he's out, they're a different team without Kyler Murray. And one of his biggest things has been health. And I think a big part of that is not just his like mobility and running around, it's that they can't protect him. And I said it's going to be a big fail for the Arizona Cardinals if they don't address the offensive line. It was similar to us. A lot of people wanted to address the offensive line. I think they did later on with guys like Pooney and Kingston. But the Cardinals kind of whiffed. They were in a position to grab. I think they had 2 first-round draft picks. Am I correct? So I thought one of those should have been at least a center, at least a guard. Like the center's the quarterback of the offensive line. I thought that they could do themselves a justice by drafting some more offensive linemen. They did get some solid players, but they're not protecting their biggest asset. So we'll see how that plays out. Kyler Murray is pretty elusive. He's kind of got that Russell Wilson, thing to him. I think he runs a little bit more than Russell Wilson. So yeah, I think that's going to be really interesting. And, I did want to just kind of throw this out there. I told you I had a really good friend that passed away this weekend on Mother's Day. Not trying to bring the show down. His name is Mark Nichols, really good friend of mine. He was a Cardinals fan. His service is going to be in a couple weeks, but a mutual friend of ours is going to get him a Marvin Harrison jersey to go in. So just wanted to quickly give him a shout out. It's kind of been a rough week for me. I've been trying to power through it, but just wanted to do that because he was a huge Cardinals fan. So gone too early. Anyway, sorry to bring it down. On to week 6. We have the Seahawks at Lumen Field, Thursday night football, first Thursday night football game of the year for us. There's 2 of them. This is the first of those in Seattle, where you're in Washington. Are you in Seattle or near Seattle? So you're kind of like right there in the.
I'm in Tacoma, so it's about 45 minutes, 45 minutes south of Seattle.
Okay. Yeah, not too far. So are you planning on going to that game or?
Probably not. With my work schedule, these Thursday games, it's really hard for me to attend. The most recent Sunday game we played, I did go with my wife. It was a very exciting game, came down to the last play. But this will be the 3rd year in a row we've played Seattle on Thursday and in Seattle. So once again, we are going to be the road team on a short week. Here's where that rest differential starts to rear its ugly head again. Yeah, the NFL knows very well what they're doing. They give the better teams in the league these tougher schedules. That's been the understanding for decades and decades. And they have an interest, of course, in reviving this rivalry. It's very exciting,
Yeah.
very profitable. They would like these games to be close. So
Yeah.
Seattle will continue to get these Thursday games. Ordinarily, I would put this as a big advantage for the Seahawks having to go on the road in a short week. Here's what's interesting. They have a new head coach, right? They have an improved defense. No Bobby Wagner this year, which that's interesting. Uh,
Hmm.
and a new coach will obviously understand and emphasize the importance of division games. Everything starts with winning the division. But for this game, they will not have their normal amount of preparation and practice time. So that might actually equalize things a little bit in San Francisco's favor.
Yeah, yeah, and no turkey legs on the line this time. No turducken, none of those kinds of things on the line. It's just a straight up Thursday night game.
Yeah.
So, it'll be interesting to see the rematch of last year to see if Seattle comes with a little bit of extra swagger because we ate turkey on their field. We didn't eat it on the logo like, Richard Sherman and those guys did to us, a decade or whatever ago. But we did get to eat turkey on their field, and that was pretty glorious. And I think Seattle might have a little something extra. So I think this is going to be a scrappy game. It might be a 50-50 type game and come down to the fourth quarter. So I do expect it to be loud there as always, and it's always a rough environment to play in, for any team, not just the Niners, but a little bit more when it's a division rival. So
Yeah, if there is an X factor in this game, I think it's going to come down to the quarterback. Seattle making at least up here where I live, a little bit of a controversial decision to stick with Geno Smith.
mhm.
San Francisco has Brock Purdy, who, last year is one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. That game last year was that difficult type of loud road game, kind of that ugly short
Yeah,
week game. But then at the end, in the fourth quarter, Purdy made that great throw to Brandon Ayuk, leading him down to the
yeah,
goal line. That it was
that was
kind of the
amazing.
final nail in the coffin. Yeah, so that could, like I said, that could very well be the X factor here.
Yeah, and the throwbacks. It'll be curious to see if they wear the throwbacks. I know there's other alternate uniforms, coming out this year. I'm not sure if the Niners plan on doing something different. I haven't heard any announcements about that, so I expect that they'll probably, if they do throwbacks, it'll just be the 94s again, and hopefully we get to see those a couple times this year. So yeah, so here we go. This is the big one right here, the big rematch, Week 7 Super Bowl rematch. One thing I'll say about this game, and then I'll give you the floor, is that I'm surprised that this is not a primetime game. Like, it's just a regular day game, a regular Sunday day game. And we kind of talked about the bye rest that the Chiefs will have coming into town, but we are getting also a little bit of a mini bye there with the Seahawks, or playing the Seahawks on Thursday night. So, thoughts on this game?
Well, the networks get to protect a certain number of games from becoming night games every year, and it's no surprise to me that they made sure to grab this one. They're putting Tom Brady on the call. The excitement for this is going to be off the charts. It will get massive ratings for an afternoon game. My thoughts on this are, it's against obviously the Kansas City Chiefs. It is the first of our 4 games that we're playing against a team coming off of a bye. Andy Reid, 28-3, coming off a bye. He's just outstanding with his preparation.
Right. Yeah.
Playing Seattle in Thursday the week before does give us 10 days rest, which you mentioned at the top of the broadcast. The most recent regular season game we played against Kansas City, it kind of got away from us in the end. The backups came into play, and that's when Purdy took his first snaps in the NFL, interestingly enough. One more thing, between these 2 Super Bowls and that regular season game, Kansas City has beaten the 49ers 3 times in a row. I'm really curious to see if the 49ers are tight. They were very tight in the Super Bowl. But, I'm going back to 1994. The Dallas Cowboys had defeated San Francisco several times in the NFC Championship game, and then they played them in the in 94 in the regular season,
Yeah.
and the 49ers were totally relaxed. They had swagger, and they won that game. I would like to see that kind of attitude from the
Energy.
team this time
Yeah.
around. Absolutely, yeah.
Definitely, definitely. So yeah, I think Kyle's probably been scheming up Spagnuolo's defense like since that day, since that game ended. Kyle's probably been like, "Oh yeah, let me show you." He's probably been dialing up some special stuff for Spagnuolo, looking at the film, trying to figure out where he can gouge him a little bit. And the other funny thing is, probably it's going to be. I hate to bring her up, but it's probably going to be a Taylor Swift type, atmosphere and all that kind of stuff. The funny thing about this, though, is I hope Tom Brady brings some mojo because Tom Brady, he grew up a Niners fan. We all know that. And he also beat the crap out of the Chiefs in their respective Super Bowls. So I'm hoping that, we get some of that Tom Brady mojo in the stadium. And, we'll see. It's going to be interesting to see how he announces games. It's going to be no, I think he'll be good at it. I think he will. He'll be able to dissect plays and who is it that he's co-hosting with? Kurt something. I can't remember. Number one broadcast. No, not Kurt. That would be good. But no, it's just a play-by-play guy. I could see his face right now, and I can't place his name. But anyway, he was talking about Tom Brady and how he's already impressed, like of his ability to see things and say things, and just through they have little rehearsals, and he said he's already impressed. So I think it might be like a Tony Romo situation, but for Fox, and be looking forward to seeing him announce that game. That probably won't be the only game that he announces of ours, but yeah, that'll probably be the first one. So.
Well, I'll say this. Fox has a lot of confidence in Tom Brady. This deal's been in the works for years. And week 7, he'll have 6 games to, really, really get good at it before calling this game. And you're right. That atmosphere is going to be electric.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. I can't imagine what ticket prices are going to be for that. They're going to be astronomical, probably. All right, moving on. It's not really a rivalry anymore because we keep beating the crap out of them. But what are your thoughts on this one?
Well, it's a Sunday night game. Again, electric atmosphere, but for the second consecutive week, we're facing a team coming off of their bye. Mike McCarthy, will have extra time to prepare. And think about the last several matchups that you just mentioned against the Dallas Cowboys. In 2021, we beat them in the wild card round. In 2022, we beat them in the divisional round. It was Brock Purdy's first playoff win. Yeah. Excuse me, his second playoff win after beating the Seahawks. I don't want to forget that.
Right.
And and then last year in the regular season, it was another night game, another big matchup, and what happened? Kittle wore the shirt, right?
Yeah.
Said F the Cowboys. So the Cowboys desperately would like to win one of these games. They're one of the top teams in the NFL every year, winning 12 games. Dak Prescott led the league in touchdown passes last season. You have to think that eventually they're going to win one of these games. Now, what kind of 49er fan would I be if I predicted that? But just keep that in the back of your mind. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, it definitely could happen. I think that, one of their biggest weaknesses is the run game. Like, obviously, Ezekiel Elliott is, he's on the back nine, if we're being honest. And, I'm not really sure who else they had. They might have drafted somebody, and I really didn't pay attention to what they did in the draft as much as I probably should have. But I don't really, if they're just going to be one-dimensional, like, I don't know. Like, if they can't run the ball, like, they lost Tony Pollard, who was a hell of a back, in my opinion, came here to Tennessee. So I really don't know what Dallas is going to look like this year if they can't get a run game going. Is Dak going to get beat up? Are they going to get down to their third quarterback who used to be our quarterback? I don't know. Like, it's going to be interesting to see what happens with them. So, yeah, I don't know about Dallas. I really don't even know. I think they could just be like a 10-win team and squeak into the playoffs as good as they've been in the past. If you don't have a run game and you're one-dimensional, which maybe they won't be, but I kind of, on paper, it kind of feels like they might be, that's a recipe for disaster. So they're all in, but all in on what,
Yeah.
Anyway, bye week. What are your thoughts on when this is happening, when it comes? And
Well, so if you take a look at weeks 2 through 8, right, which included some tough games against the Chiefs, against the Cowboys, road games on a short week, playing teams coming off of a bye. If there's one silver lining to weeks 2 through 8, it's that every single one of those games is on the West Coast, right, either in
Mm-hmm.
Seattle, LA, or San Francisco. And if you include the bye weeks, that's 8 consecutive weeks that they're on the West Coast.
Yeah.
Very very little travel in that stretch of the season, and then they get the bye. So, would you like the bye a little bit later in the year? Possibly. It's not an early bye, so I'm kind of okay with it right where it is. They play two really tough games, Chiefs, Cowboys. They get a bye, and then the schedule softens up a little bit. I mean, again, we don't know how these teams are going to look during the season, but looking at it right now, it would appear to soften up a little bit. So could be a well-timed buy for the 49ers.
Yeah, and just one other thing to note is, last night Dre Greenlaw got the Dwight Clark Award. Fred Warner presented it to him. He was already out of the walking boot, but I think that the goal, the plan is to start him on the PUP. So that's 6 weeks, and then they get an additional 3 weeks to activate him. He could be activated in the bye week and be back on the team week 10 for this game. Go ahead.
Tampa Bay, right? That's
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Okay. Well, for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, interestingly enough, in Week 10, in Week 9, they play Kansas City at Kansas City on Monday night, and then they play San Francisco, so they're going to be on short rest. They are the home team. The 49ers only have a rest advantage in 2 games this year. That's it out of all the games. Both of those games are in Florida. So when we get the rest advantage, we have the long flight, so that's a little bit frustrating. One other thing, though, the Buccaneers, just in these last few games, Brock Purdy has played extraordinarily well. His first ever start in the NFL came against the Bucs, where he outplayed Tom Brady,
Right.
And got a huge, kind of career-defining win. The next game he played against Tampa Bay, he played even better with a perfect 158.3 passer rating. So
Right.
that's going to be an interesting game. I like the Niners in that one.
Yeah, absolutely. And coming off the bye week last year, kind of around the same time, we flew out to Jacksonville, Florida team. So it's kind of similar situation there. I'm not saying we're going to blow out Tampa Bay like we blew out Jacksonville, two totally different teams. But, I think that it is advantage Niners at least, if they, get their fire alarm pulled in their hotel and don't get sleep or any number of things like that could happen, then maybe they come out lethargic. But I don't see it. They're going to be rested. They're going to be ready. And the Niners always kind of seem to do well off a bye.
Great point.
So second Seattle game, week 11, this time at Levi's.
This, to me, is one of the most interesting games on the schedule. We already talked about the importance of these divisional games, especially with a new head coach. I think this is a big game for the Seahawks. Seattle is coming off of their bye, right? So once again, we're playing a team coming off of their bye. The first game, they're not going to really have proper prep time. I would not be surprised at all if the 49ers win that Thursday night game in Seattle. This time, however, they were going to have a full 2 weeks to prepare for San Francisco, and I just wonder in the back of my mind if this game, the away game at San Francisco, is the one that Mike McDonald is circling on his calendar.
Right, and that by that time, that defense is going to be well established. They're going to be comfortable playing with each other as a unit. I think that's going to be the goal. The Ravens did that very well Christmas Day. So I don't think that they have the same pieces. It's different personnel than the Ravens have. I think the Ravens are probably up on the plus side of personnel if you're comparing Seattle to Baltimore. But I think this could be an upset alert type of game. I think that it's very much in the cards. I don't think that the Niners are going to run the table in the division again this year. I just think that there's too many outliers, too many factors that are kind of working against them. The rest disadvantage being one of those. And I think that, 1 or 2 games probably in the division this year are not going to go the Niners' way. And, we'll all be drowning our tears with beer, but it's not the end of the world. So I think that this could be one of those games. I'm not saying it will be. The Niners have been playing better as the years have gone by with Kyle Shanahan at home. So I think we got the home field advantage. So it could go either way, though. This might be a coin toss type of game. So that's my thoughts on it. And then we get into week 12, week 13. This is kind of a rough little patch here. Could be. I didn't look at the Farmer's Almanac, so I'm not really sure what the weather's going to be. I don't think anybody does, but those are pretty accurate sometimes. So after we get off here, I might check it out. And I kind of meant to beforehand just to kind of say the Farmer's Almanac says that it's going to be clear, it's going to be snowing, it's going to be impossible. So anyway, thoughts on this one?
Well, I think you hit the nail right on the head. To quote, Ray Scott, it is indeed cold in Green Bay, right? So November 24, starting to get, pretty late in the year. And again, kind of like with the Dallas game, 2021, we beat the Aaron Rodgers-led Packers in the snow in Green Bay, right? Very close game. Huff came up with a huge play at the end. Jimmy G did not play very well, but then what happened on that final drive, right? He made, I think, 2 or 3 great passes. He had the one where he looked off the defender, made that great pass over the middle, got us into field goal range for the win. We're going to see Brock Purdy in some cold weather games here. That, to me, is one of the last remaining unanswered questions about Brock Purdy. He plays in a warm weather city, so I don't know if it's as big a question as people are making it out to be. But this will be an interesting factor both this week and the following week. In 2023, of course, which is last season, Jordan Love and the Packers came to our house for the playoffs, and
it was raining. Yeah,
they played pretty well. They were up on us. We had to come back on them. You would think, just kind of like we talked about with the Dallas Cowboys earlier, eventually they're going to get one of these games. And when I say that, I just mean that, it's, and I say this on my channel all the time, it's not a round ball, right? There is an element of randomness to the game of football. So even
absolutely,
you could say, that 49ers are probably top to bottom a better team than the Packers. The Packers aren't bad either. They're professionals. This could be one of these types of games.
Yeah. I mean, this game worries me. Brock Purdy has shown that the rain is a factor for him, both in Cleveland and also, the Packers game that you just talked about at Levi's. So, yeah, the weather does concern me a little bit. The cold weather, like if it's snowing or icy, I'm not so sure about that. I'm not sure if, like at Iowa State, it snows in Iowa, obviously. So I'm not sure if the cold weather, I'm not sure if he's played bad. I'd have to look back at some Iowa State games that maybe had some adverse weather in terms of cold or snowing or icy or anything like that. And I'm sure that he had some, but I'm not sure. That is a very good point to bring up because he has not played his best games when there is weather. So I don't know. Hopefully he was working this off season on some like one of those hand grip things, strengthening in his hands or something like that. It seemed like the ball was slipping out a little bit on him, when it was wet. So maybe he'll strengthen his hands with one of those things and be able to grip the ball better. I know that he was putting some muscle on this year. His arms look pretty jacked. So we'll see how he looks if he's, better. I think that they'll be really prepared for this game. They always are against Green Bay. I think the game plan will be good, but this is definitely one of those games. We obviously don't know what the weather's going to be, but this will be one of those games that we want to circle because it is a playoff rematch. It's the Packers. So I think our rivalry with the Packers is probably more renewed than the Cowboys, to be honest, because I think they've beaten us more recently than Dallas. I'd have to double check. I might be misquoting, but it just feels like they have a better chance against us than the Cowboys. So that's my take on that one. So, and then the next week we move on to potentially another weather game. Potentially, it's going to probably be cold in one of those two games, if not both. So, yeah, thoughts on this one?
Clearly the most difficult game on the schedule. It's a Sunday night game, and just like we talked about earlier, when you have to go on the road and then you go on the road again in the following week in a night game, statistically, teams do very poorly in those situations. It's just plain difficult. And it's going to be, now we're into December, very cold in Buffalo. Josh Allen is going to be in his element, whereas Brock Purdy, we're going to have to see. Um, and just to throw one more thing into the mix, this is the another game where we're playing a team coming off of their bye. Buffalo's going to be coming off of their bye that week. So
Yeah. I
very,
forgot to
very,
put
very
them in that.
game.
Forgot to put them in that tab up there. That was the team that I left off. But yeah, Buffalo coming off a bye at home, potentially Josh Allen's weather. Those are all factors. This could be a couple game skid right here. This could be a little bit of a stumble. The last time the Niners played Josh Allen, I think he just lit him up in the air. But that being said, Diggs, Gabe Davis, he lost some pieces. He's going to have to regain some chemistry with some new receivers. So we'll see how the Bills look this year. They always run the ball decently, pretty well enough anyway. Not sure how that defense is going to look and how Kyle will be able to scheme him up. But yeah, Brock Purdy is a big question mark in both these games, potentially, cold weather and just maybe outliers that are unforeseen. Hopefully we get those random days in Green Bay or Buffalo that are nice in that time of year. Hopefully that's the case, or, bearable, no snow, no rain, might be a little chilly. That would be perfect. That would be ideal. Let's hope for that. Let's pray for that to the football gods, and maybe we'll get it.
Well, what's probably going to happen is that they're probably going to be weather games, and then Brock Purdy's going to go out and throw 5 touchdowns and prove us wrong, like he's proven every one of his doubters wrong every year.
Every step of the way. Yeah, it's like, check this box, check this box, check. He's love the guy, and I hope his career continues to just be on that arrow up.
Oh yeah. So.
Next week is a home game. Finally, after that rough road trip there, back at home against Chicago. Caleb Williams, thoughts on this one?
Well, I think you kind of just mentioned it, that game against Buffalo really concludes sort of a difficult, tricky 4-game stretch for the 49ers, right? 3 out of the 4 games are on the road, at Tampa Bay, at Green Bay, at Buffalo. And sandwiched in between that is the big home game against the Seattle Seahawks, which we know is going to be a tough game. But then things start to calm down a little bit. The Chicago Bears, they are stacked on paper, but we still haven't seen them really put it together, on the field. And
right.
One thing about Caleb Williams, playing him week 14 means that the 49ers will have tape on him. Playing him week 1 or week 2 would be pretty difficult because we don't know what the Bears are going to do or how they're going to do it. By week 14, we should be able to effectively game plan against them.
Yeah. And I think the Niners have been historically pretty good at exposing rookies. And I'm not a big fan of Caleb Williams off the field and on the field. Like, I'm a Sooners fan, so I got a little bit of bitterness towards him too, because he left with trader Lincoln Riley over to USC. So I don't have any love for that guy. But just the football aspect of it, I think that there are some inconsistencies there that the Niners can expose. And he kind of gives me Ryan Leaf type vibes. Like he's coming into the league. He feels entitled. Like he just has this whole thing. Like even his own teammates are like, don't bring that Hollywood crap into this locker room, already, like giving him warning shots. And it's just like, I don't know. I don't know how that's going to work out. It'll be interesting. I think it's either, feast or famine with that guy. I think he's going to either be really, really good or really, really bad because his ego gets the better of him. So that's kind of my take on Caleb Williams. I do feel like this game, the Niners will have every single advantage. I think if you're looking at matchups, every single matchup favors the Niners in this game, in this week. But it could be one of those sleeper games. The Niners are going to lose one of these games that you're not expecting them to lose. So that, any of these games could be that game to where you're like, oh, we're supposed to beat the Bucs or we're supposed to beat the Bears, and we just don't for some reason. So, that's kind of my take on that. But yeah, another Thursday night game after this.
Yeah, so only 13 teams, that's less than half the league, have to play these Thursday night games, and there's some other 4-day rest games like on Christmas, which is a Wednesday, but I'm going to consider those Thursday night games for the purpose of this statistic. Only 13 teams play two of those games, and the 49ers are one of them, of course. It
Yeah.
is at home, and the Rams will also be on short rest. Again, just with our track record against the Rams playing at home, I like the 49ers in this game.
Yeah, yeah, me too. I think that this is lined up well for us. Prime time, Sean McVay, Kyle Shanahan. I think if we're going to lose either of the games to the Rams, it probably will be that first one. Um, maybe. I don't know. Again, the Niners have had the Rams number, but the Rams have slowly been getting better. I think that there's going to be something to be said for the absence of Aaron Donald. You know, Aaron Donald retiring. He was a huge captain. He was a huge presence in that locker room. Like rookies walked in, like Kobe Turner, and we're like, wow, like enamored with Aaron Donald. I think that's the kind of presence he had on defense. It's kind of like us with like Fred Warner or Patrick Willis or any of those guys. You know, there's just that presence in the locker room. They don't necessarily have to say anything, but there's that respect that, like, you know, this guy's a golden jacket type of guy, and they don't have that anymore. So we'll get into the rookies here in a minute, but you lose a guy like Aaron Donald, that's going to hurt. It's going to be hard you can't replace it. So, Kobe Turner is a good player. He was a defensive player of the year finalist last year. I think he's going to take on that role along the defensive line as the top guy, as the leader there. So, I think that the Niners, I think they're set up well against the Rams, but the Rams are a division rival, and all division games are difficult,
Yeah.
So we'll see. That's going to be a fun one. On to week 16, Hard Rock Stadium in Miami. Day game.
Yeah,
game.
well, the Miami Dolphins will be coming off of a bye. I think I had that right. I have that written down here. Someone might need to double check me. That seems pretty late for that. But the 49ers will have 10 days of rest before that game, having played on Thursday against the Rams. And the Dolphins is an intriguing matchup to me because, remember when Brock Purdy had to come in for an injured Jimmy Garoppolo, it was against Miami, and he played well in that game. And he just, every time he sees a team multiple times, he just seems to play better and better each time.
Yeah. And they added some pieces on offense. Obviously, Odell Beckham, who knows if he'll even be available for that game because his injury history has not been the best. But if he's there, that's a factor. I mean, Jalen Waddle, kind of the same thing. Not very healthy. Raheem Mostert. It kind of seems like they have this this roster of guys who are really good when they're on the field, but you can never count on them to be there every single week. So that's kind of how I view Miami, and at least one of those guys will for sure be hurt in week 16 and not available. So
hopefully not, but
yeah, hopefully, it's their 11 versus our 11. Everybody's healthy. Not wishing injuries. I'm just saying the chances of it
are
pretty
hard
good
to argue with that.
So, and I do love Mike McDaniel as a coach. I think he's great. I think he's humorous. He's, his team seems to love him. So he's kind of like one of the guys, but he is the leader of the team. So, I like his coaching style. And, I think the Dolphins are going to be good. I think they actually might have a chance to win that division, against the Bills. I think it'll be them and the Bills for the AFC East. So I don't know if the Jets could be a factor, but I think Bobby Saleh is probably, I meant to say this when we were talking about the Jets, but I think Bobby Saleh is probably on the hot seat this year. It's New York, if he doesn't get it done this year and they go like 8-9 or something like that, I think that's it for him. And, if it doesn't work out with this Brandon Staley Sorensen thing, bring him back because he was pretty good defensive coordinator. But anyway, that's sort of my take on that. And Kyle Shanahan's coaching tree continues to grow. It's really impressive. It's almost Bill Walsh like, so that's pretty cool. So week 17 is it's going to be a rematch, and it's going to be prime time, and everybody's going to be glued into this one.
Prime time, but importantly on Monday night, not Sunday night. So after that long flight back from Miami, the 49ers will have 8 days to rest and prepare for Detroit, who will also have 8 days. But I think that equalizes things. I really like that, especially that game being played at Levi Stadium. The Lions are going to be looking for revenge after the NFC Championship game. But I just like the 49ers in that game. I just have a good feeling about it.
Yeah, yeah. I think they'll be more prepared. Obviously, against the run, the Lions came out and just gouged us and just they bullied us. Really, that's what it looked like. I mean, they were just pushing us around, pushing our defense around. I've never seen our defense look that outmatched, and their offensive line. I think they lost an offensive lineman to Seattle, Jonas or somebody. Somebody they lost a key player along that offensive line. I forget who it was. I'll have to check after this, but they lost somebody, and I'm not sure if they replaced them. So we'll see how that holds up there. I think it was an interior offensive line. It might have been a guard. But yeah, that's going to be a fun game. It's going to be a fun rematch. There's going to be a lot online. It might have that Taylor Swift thing, not as much, but Eminem might fly out again. Probably will. There's a lot of clips of fans talking trash to him and then chewing his gum like Pete Carroll. So, we'll see that again, hopefully. That was kind of funny. So, yeah, I think that one is a winnable game. I don't think it's going to be an easy game by any stretch. I don't think we're going to, they're not going to come into town. We're not going to blow them out type of thing. It could be like a 27-24 and Jake Moody kicks the game winner at the end type of game. I could be wrong. We could blow them out. They could blow us out. Anything can happen. It's football. So those are my thoughts on that one. And then finally, sorry, I didn't know did you want to elaborate on something on the Lions?
Just more of a personal comment. I always think it's funny when the fans get upset about Taylor Swift or Eminem, and I just think it's kind of fun to have these celebrities at the game, and we get to see their reactions, and I'm probably in the minority there, but I loved watching those shots of Eminem in the box in the NFC Championship game last year. That was great.
Yeah I just think that that was good. I like that. I didn't mind that, but for me, the Taylor Swift stuff, it's just kind of become overbearing. It's almost like she's taken over the NFL brand, and I'm like, come on, dial it back just a little. Like, she could be there, but don't go up and pan to the box like every 5 seconds. Like, we get it. She's as big as Michael Jackson. But calm down. I think that's one of her songs. Like, you need to calm down in the NFL. So anyway, that's funny. And I agree with you. Kind of like they have the right to be there. The Super Bowl is chock full of celebrities. I mean, that's the only people that can afford it anymore.
Right.
But, so it's fun. It adds an element of there's your little mascot, and it's kind of like, high school. Oh, the popular kids at this game now. It's funny. It's funny. Anyway, week 18, we don't have a date for this one yet. Just because they do the Saturday, Sunday thing. I don't think that they will give us a Saturday game. We're already at a huge, disadvantage rest wise. I can't see them giving us a Saturday game after doing a Monday night game after all of that disadvantage. So I think this one's going to be on Sunday. Thoughts on this one, the final game? I don't think this is going to be a deciding factor, but who knows? Maybe it can be.
Well, just to play devil's advocate here, I didn't think they would give us an even worse rest differential this year than last year, but they did. So why wouldn't they give us a Saturday game? Realistically, though, I agree with you. I don't think that they actually will. I would be surprised if they did. It will probably, hopefully, be a non-factor. Maybe we can rest some of our starters in this game if we have things locked up. That's up to the team, of course. Or it could be a game of importance. We don't really know. We've already talked about Arizona previously. It is in Arizona as well, so there is that potential, or beyond potential, it will be a road game on a short week again. But very short trip. A lot of Niner fans in Arizona, like you'd previously mentioned. And I didn't get a chance to say it earlier, but I am sorry to hear about your friend.
I appreciate that.
Accept my condolences, and may he rest.
Absolutely. And if anybody's watching, or anybody sees this, just prayers to the family and everything like that. It was crushing. It was a devastating blow, and still trying to deal with it. Still trying to power through and just keep myself busy and not have to think about it so much, because he was a really good friend, one of my best friends. So anyway, I appreciate that. Thanks for the sentiment on that. So yeah, that's it. We all the way through week 18, kind of discussed all the different things. And now what we'd like to do, we kind of like to get into a win-loss prediction. I think somebody mentioned that, we were 48 hours late on the schedule. That's fine. Everybody kind of has their own take and everything like that. So there are a lot of prediction things a little bit more recently, though. So let's get into that. And Josh and I will kind of just go through and every week by week, and we'll just kind of buzz through it pretty quickly because there's a couple more topics that we want to get to. And then if anybody wants to have questions for us at the very end, we'll open it up for Q&A, assuming that there's, enough people in there to ask questions, things like that.
These comments are killing me, by the way. I'm loving them. Keep them coming.
I didn't even don't get too excited, guys. We're just trying to channel our inner Nick Bosa. That's what we're doing here. So anyway, yeah, get into this, and I will bring this up. And so, yeah, week 1, we'll kind of run through it really quick, and you can go ahead and start with week 1, Josh, and give me your prediction.
Win.
And then, yeah, that's what I figured. So SF, we got a win column there. I'm with you on that one. We'll see how many of these that we actually don't agree on. So at Vikings next week, Sam Darnold.
I'm going to say win.
All right. We got win. I am with you on that one. We're going SF there, and that is a win. At Rams.
Win.
Levi South. I'm gonna go ahead and I'm going to say this is one of the games that we are expected to win, and we do not. I'm sorry. I don't think that we're going to run the table on the division this year. So yeah, that's a one for me. Lost there. Patriots.
I'm going to say win.
Okay. We got 4-0 for Josh. I'm going to agree with you there too. Patriots do not have. Cardinals at home.
Another win. I promise I'm not being a homer.
Hey, a lot of the national media and everything like that, they did the same thing. So I'm with you on that one too. I think I do think this game is going to be a little bit closer, but a win for the Niners there. Cardinals always play us tough. At Seahawks Thursday Night Football.
Win.
Okay, and I almost want to flip a coin for this one, but I'm going to go ahead and pick the Niners. I'm with the Niners on this one, especially if they're wearing the throwbacks. And yeah, so Chiefs.
I'm going to say loss.
Okay. And I am going to agree with you on the simple fact that they just kind of have our number. I do think it's going to be a close game, though. I don't think that they're going to run away with it or we're going to run away with it. So, yeah, Cowboys.
This is one of those games that concerns me, like we discussed earlier, but there's no way I'm picking the Dallas Cowboys. I'm going with the 49ers all the way in this one.
Okay. All right. I'm with you on that. I think that if the Chiefs do beat us, the Niners are going to take it out on the Cowboys. I'm going SF there. We got a bye week, undefeated against the bye week, unless there's injuries or anything like that. Knock on wood. At the Bucks after the bye.
Win.
Okay, and I am with you on that. Seahawks at home.
Well, this is another surprisingly tough game, I think. I'm going to say that maybe the Niners get kind of a lucky break late and win, at the end of the game or in overtime and come away with the win.
Awesome. Okay. One. I think that I'm going to go Seattle here because I think that the Niners are going to go 4-2 in the division. And I think this is the one that we maybe drop. kind of like the opposite of what you said. Maybe they get a field goal late, something of that nature, and hopefully not. But yeah, I'm going to go with a loss there. Packers at the Packers in Green Bay. Potential cold weather.
Yep, on the frozen tundra, I'm going to say it's going to be a loss.
Okay, Green Bay. So we have a loss there. I think that I think there's a chance that we beat them. So I'm gonna go with the Niners on this one on the road. They've kind of had the Packers number. The Packers are going to be bringing it that game, but I feel like we might get to see like maybe a Joe Montana moment from Brock Purdy, and maybe he finally gets a really defining late touchdown pass or something like that. So I'm going Niners there. At Bills.
I'm going to say a loss.
And I am also going to say a loss there because I don't think that you could win two of those games in a row. So I'm going loss. Bears at home.
It's a great get-right game for the 49ers. I think they win that game at Levi's.
And I'm with you there. I hope that they lose like 40-0, the Bears. Rams at home.
Win.
And I am with you there. I don't think that they beat us twice. I think they get lucky the first time and not lucky the second time. At the Dolphins in Miami.
This is another one of those sneaky games late in the season. When the team is tired, they've got a long trip. Maybe sort of like with the Cleveland game, maybe it's a sloppy game that they have a chance to win and they just drop it late. I'm going to say a loss.
Okay. I think that I'm going win here just because I think Kyle kind of has ownage on his disciples, and also Brock Purdy played very well against the Dolphins. I think that trend will continue for his career. His dad's a big Marino fan, and I think he's going to turn into Marino at Hard Rock Stadium. Lions at home, Monday Night Football.
Huge game, second to last game of the season. I think the 49ers wrap up the division and or seeding in this game and come away with the win.
I think that this might be a confidence booster for Detroit heading into the playoffs. I think they're going to be a playoff team. I think the Niners stumble a little bit here and maybe get a little tiny bit sloppy before the playoffs, but they will make it up. At Cardinals, last game of the year.
Well, I have no reason to think that the 49ers wouldn't beat the Cardinals, but there's always that weird, unexpected, where you shouldn't have lost game that you just can't predict. So I'm going to use that for this game here and give the 49ers a wild and unexpected loss, maybe because they're resting starters.
And I'm going to go ahead and say Niners here. Because based on my prediction, like I think that they would be in a position where they needed to play everybody. Hopefully not. Hopefully in the playoffs they can get some extra rest. But that is my prediction, and we'll just go ahead and sum this up and see what the final records come out to. But we got 12-5 for Josh, and 12-5 for me as well. We have different wins and losses, but we came out with the same total. So yeah, I think that sounds about right. 12-5. I think 11-12 wins, I think, is what we're looking at this year. If we get 13, I would be shocked. If we get 14, I'd be amazed. If we run the table, nobody's going to stop us. So
right. Let's hope not.
So yeah, I'm going to go ahead and save this, and we'll, if we collab again, we'll revisit this and just for fun, take a look at it. Maybe maybe the bye week or something like that,
Yeah,
or
that'll
whenever
be
we decide to do.
Yeah.
And just kind of see where we landed, what we thought, and Obviously your film breakdowns will be fun to watch after all these and things like that. So yeah, I'm excited to see what happens here. And yeah, so the next topic that we wanted to cover, just kind of lastly, well, I'm going to ask this really quick too. Let me remove that, and then let's kind of just say which game we are most looking forward to, and then we'll get into the rookie impact.
Oh, I feel like this is such a lame answer, but I'm looking forward to week 1 against the Jets. It's Robert Sala's return to the Bay. It's Aaron Rodgers against Brock Purdy, youth versus experience. A lot of excitement about that game. That's the one I'm looking forward to.
Yeah, yeah. And for me, I'm going to be kind of like homeristic here, and I'm going to say the Chiefs, kind of a revenge game. They do have our number. I did pick them to beat us, but I think that for me, seeing us beat the Chiefs, kind of like what you stated, like in '94, beating the Cowboys and doing all that. I kind of hope that that's what happens this year. I hope we don't even see them if we get back to the Super Bowl. I hope their three-peat fails and goes down the garbage disposal and gets chopped up. I hope I'm not a big fan of the Chiefs for obvious reasons. So yeah, that's the one for me. I hope we have a get right game against the Chiefs. But if we could only have one Chiefs win and they are in the Super Bowl and it's another rematch, like give me the loss in the regular season and give me the Super Bowl victory. So that's my take on that. So. All right, and then just jumping into the rookie impact, and I'll let you drive this one and kind of take it on and give the thoughts there. I know you had some notes and everything like that, so.
Well, we talked, about most of this video about the rest differential, right? The 49ers have a lot of games on short weeks where their opponents have extra rest. It's very taxing on the players. I think these young guys are going to have to play. I don't want to recap the entire draft. I know that's been done ad nauseum to this point, but just a few quick notes here. There's a saying in football, GMs who draft for need get fired, right? Because they're drafting for what they need, not taking the best players available. I think we saw an excellent example of that from the 49ers' very first pick in the draft. Our biggest need, arguably, is at the right tackle position. But an NFL record, 8 tackles were drafted in the first round before it even got to us, before the first round was even over. Yeah. I think they made a very wise and prudent decision not to use that valuable first-round draft pick, the first one we've had in years, on the 9th best tackle in the draft. Yeah. Instead, they take Pearsall, the wide receiver. He was the 6th wide receiver taken, but in my opinion, could very well be the second best wide receiver in the draft. Just an excellent pick. Ordinarily it takes wide receivers 2 or 3 years to develop. They're kind of like quarterbacks in that way, but I think we might see an immediate impact from Pearsall. Whether he'll be a starter or not, I don't know. Kyle does so many things personnel-wise. You never know who's going to be starting on the first play of the game, but I think he'll play a lot of snaps. Okay, there's another way of saying that. I don't think you'll see him return kicks. Moving on, and
to your point, real quick,
go ahead. Yeah.
I think that like Pearsall, in my mind, I think that like you said, it's going to take a couple years. I think that maybe the contract and everything with Debo in 2025, we'll see what happens there. But maybe they move off Debo in 2025, and then Pearsall steps up into that role as a second-year receiver, and his impact is even greater. So I think Debo had like 89 targets last season, so maybe Ricky's kind of in that range in 2025 if they move off Debo.
Yeah, the 49ers really put themselves in a great position. It takes the pressure off of the Debo situation. It takes the pressure off of the Brandon Ayuk situation. They recognize that they have one of the best quarterbacks in the league, Brock Purdy. I believe he's threw the second most touchdown passes in the league with 31, and they got him another weapon. So that, to me, is interesting. Moving on, in the second round, they drafted a quarterback, and in the fourth round, they drafted a safety. Backfield depth, and to me, this is really interesting. They have a new defensive coordinator, obviously, Nick Sorensen. He was the pass defense specialist for the 49ers. Prior to that, he was the secondary coach for the Seattle Seahawks for 4 years. Go back to Sorensen's college career. He was actually the quarterback at Virginia Tech. he had to change positions because another player by the name of Michael Vick came in and took over that position. He became a defensive back, and so he has a very unique perspective. And in his first draft as defensive coordinator, the 49ers go out and get these two guys. I think these guys also see a lot of playing time this year.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I also feel like maybe Renardo Green, it could be a day one starter. He's going to have to compete against Isaac Yiadom, who had a really good PFF grade, didn't play the whole season, but he has shown that he's a valuable corner, could be an asset in this defense as well. So we'll see how that shakes out. Camp's going to determine all that, but I love his swagger, I love his mindset. Both him and Bethune, both coming from Florida State. That defense had some swagger with Jared Verse and Fisk. I mean, that was a good defense. That was a good college defense, and there's a lot of good players off that defense that got drafted into the NFL. So I do love. I think Green's going to be an impact player. Maybe if not this year, I think he will grow into it next year. So he's kind of got that Lenore like hyena, that swagger, that dog like mentality. He's not going to make business decisions. Like he's going to get dirty, and he's going to make he'll get in there and tackle a running back. So.
Yep, and then in the third round, we took Pooney, and then in the sixth round, Kingston. So we did draft some offensive linemen, more interior guys, inside help. We might see those guys worked in at some point, especially, offensive linemen if they get an injury. A lot of times those guys have to deal with things like quads and ankles and things like that. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Absolutely, yeah. Pooney, I love this pick. I think it might be probably my favorite draft pick out of all these, maybe between him and Ricky Pearsall. But I think that from what I've seen, watching this guy at Kansas, 0 sacks in 2023, he does have the ability to play tackle, guard, and potentially center. He can go across the board often on the offensive line. And I think maybe they could groom him potentially because I think Trent Williams is done after this year. I think he's going to retire. Might give us one more year, but I doubt it. And if that's the case, maybe they groom him to either be the swing tackle this year or just be like that immediate plug and play along the offensive line if there's any injuries, and maybe groom him to take over for Trent Williams. I think that this kid, it's an early prediction, and it's hard to say how people will pan out, but I do think that this guy might have all-pro potential.
That would be great. In the fourth round, I think the 49ers got an absolute steal here. The running back position has been devalued in the NFL to the degree that teams just didn't even bother drafting any of these running backs. The 49ers did the opposite. They trade up to get Isaac Guerendo. He ran a 4.3 40. He's 220 pounds. I think he may well be the best running back in the draft. And what did we see last year? Christian McCaffrey take all those snaps. It was too many snaps. It was noticeable even to the fans who started commenting on it week in and week out. We've got to get somebody that can split carries with him. Jordan Mason has shown a lot of ability, but unfortunately has been very disappointing in pass protection. In fact, I'll even go stronger and say he's been a liability in pass protection. We could see more of Isaac Guerendo and less of Jordan Mason moving forward.
Yeah, I totally agree with you on that. And I think that they do have to find a way to minimize CMC's touches because if they try to do that again this year, I mean, he had 89 targets in the passing game on top of all his rushing production. That's too much for one player. And you have to find a guy that you can trust, and I think that they do trust Elijah Mitchell, but they don't trust his ability to stay healthy, which is why they drafted a running back and then got, Cody Schrader later in the undrafted free agent. So, I think Cody Schrader also has a really good chance to get up on the roster and everything like that. I mean, he was 8th in Heisman voting, might have been the best running back in the entire SEC, all 1,800 all-purpose yards. He was a force. He was a team captain. Niners have been drafting like a lot of team captains, and I think that's intentional. They want guys that are going to come into the locker room and be leaders, even if they're not an actual team captain, but be leaders on the team and lead by example. And I think, both those guys, Guerendo and Schrader, are that,
Yep, and then later in the fourth round, they took Jacob Cowing. I think that's going to be your kick returner. And that's interesting because the rules for kick returns are different this year. There's extra importance to it. You know, there's been this joke going around for a few years now that Kyle doesn't care about special teams. Well, the joke suddenly hasn't been very funny, you know, with some of these problems that we've been having, particularly in the return game. So I think that was an excellent pick. And then in the seventh round, we took a linebacker, Bethune. And we also added Devondre Campbell from Green Bay. So
Right.
with the injury to Dre Greenlaw, I don't think that that's an insignificant pick.
No, not at all. And who knows? He could wind up being that third linebacker. We just don't know. We'll have to wait and see. You know, training camp's going to shake everything out. We got D Winters, Jalen Graham coming back off injury. Those guys are going to be in the mix too. So that's going to be a fun position battle to see who can get that third spot. I think Flanagan Foles will kind of maybe be in there too, but he's more of a special teamer. So we'll see how these guys get worked in. D Winters, I think, had some playing time in the Super Bowl after Dre went down. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like I saw him flash in there on a few plays other than special teams. I could be wrong about that, but through your film breakdowns, maybe you saw him in on a couple plays or noticed him. So
You know, I've deleted that game from my memory. So
just like an Etch-a-Sketch, just
yeah, it's been tough.
yeah.
But yeah, that's sort of my take on the draft. I think that ultimately every one of those guys is going to play. And with the fact that we're on short rest, we have a lot of older guys on the team. The 49ers were the oldest team in the playoffs last year. I think that they're going to get playing time, and I think it's a really, you know, shrewd way for them to sort of address that, get these young guys involved. And of course, you know, the 49ers, like you said, did acquire Leonard Floyd. They also acquired Chris Hubbard. If he can get healthy, there's another possibility for your swing tackle right there.
Yeah.
And by the end of the season, of course, late in the year, Dre Greenlaw, Talanoa Hufanga will be getting reinforcements. So they did address their needs, some through the draft and some through free agency. A lot of young guys, a lot of new faces, and I think those guys are going to be playing, especially with the schedule that the 49ers have this season.
Do you think that, just real quickly here before we wrap it up, do you think that Malik Mustafa was drafted because Hufanga is not quite ready?
Well, it's something they have to consider, right? You know, so much was made of Atlanta taking Michael Penix in the draft. I think that was actually a good pick. You know, Kirk Cousins is coming off of a very serious injury. They don't know how he's going to respond. You have to have a plan. Hope for the best, plan for the worst.
Right. Yeah. No, that's a good point. And I know everybody's take was like, what are you guys doing? Like, get your team better. Pick BPA. Why are you drafting a quarterback in the first? But now that you say that, it does make a little bit more sense. And I think that, you know, you can't really count on Kirk playing all 17 games coming off an Achilles. So I think that's a good point, and it's a fair point. And that's why they did it. 100% why they did it. You know, they wouldn't have done it if they feared that Kirk Cousins was not going to be available, or if they didn't fear that he wasn't going to be available. So yeah, I think that's a valid point. So yeah, I don't know. I guess, you know, we don't have any people right now to do a Q&A with. So I think that if you don't have any, do you have any more talking points that you wanted to address? And
just real quick, I see in the comments, Jason Massey, want to shout him out, Niner Faithful Radio. Go watch his content. And once again, want to thank CG Ruthless. CG has been instrumental in sort of not only setting this up, but setting up other things with other content creators. He's a great networker, great interviewer. He's got a tremendous TikTok channel. I don't know if people really recognize everything that CG does. And just wanted to give him a shout out, and people should watch his content, definitely.
Absolutely. Yeah. Appreciate you, CG. If you watch this, we definitely appreciate you setting up this collab, and there'll be more to come, I'm sure. So appreciate you guys. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.